The gods arrived in a ship so large it blocked half our moon. They offered enlightenment. We offered coffee. And that's where things started going wrong, for them. The gods arrived in a ship so large it blocked half our moon. They offered enlightenment. We offered coffee. And that's where things started going wrong, for them. That was how Dr. Olivia Tran later described it during a classified debriefing. And while the official records were sanitized, the raw truth was more absurd, and far more human. It began on a Tuesday. A celestial shadow fell over the Pacific, a ripple in the sky like oil smeared across glass. Then came the voice, calm, sonorous, and utterly self-satisfied. The Viennari ascendancy had arrived, broadcasting a message on every frequency from whale song to microwave ovens. Primitive beings of Earth. Your era of isolation ends now. Prepare to be integrated into the divine consensus. World governments scrambled. The internet imploded. Conspiracy theorists had heart attacks live on stream. Somewhere in Texas, a man tried to shoot the sky. The UN assembled within hours. A rare act of unity born of shared anxiety. They called in linguists, diplomats, physicists, and for reasons not entirely clear, Dr. Olivia Tran, a mid-level cybersecurity expert with a history of sarcasm in formal reports. When the Viennari envoy ship descended into Geneva airspace, it didn't land. It hovered, effortlessly bending gravity in ways our brightest minds couldn't explain. The ship gleamed, a monstrous spiral of obsidian and light, its surface crawling with shifting glyphs like stars rearranging themselves mid-thought. Inside the UN chamber, the lights flickered. Then they spoke again, this time directly into the minds of everyone in the room. We bring the gift of knowledge. You may bask in our presence. A glowing column materialized in the center of the hall. A Viennari high priest general emerged, 7 feet tall, ethereal, humanoid but unnerving. Its skin shimmered like polished bone. Its eyes pulsed softly with violet light. Everyone stood. Olivia sat. She sipped her coffee, opened her laptop, and muttered, "Let's see what divine runs on." The alien turned to her. "Primitive vessel," it intoned. "Why does it hum with corrupted energy?" Olivia smiled. "It's Adele. That's normal." The Viennari ignored her. Big mistake. As they addressed the assembly, speaking in terms like soul quantum convergence and neural humility, Olivia tuned them out. Her fingers tapped keys casually, drawing diagnostic pings from the atmosphere. The alien ship's ambient signals were everywhere, clean, elegant, but arrogant. No security layering. No redundancies. Just one massive assumption, that no one could understand them. She dug deeper. It wasn't hacking. Not yet. It was just curiosity. Olivia didn't break rules unless she had to. But if their divine network happened to respond to basic TCP/IP queries, well, that was on them. The first red flag appeared within minutes. The ship's central uplink was running a rotating encryption loop synced to Earth's calendar system. Specifically, Gregorian leap years. She blinked. "You guys based your divine firewall on our calendar? That's adorable." The Viennari priest paused, cocking its head. "The ancient cycles of time are universal." Olivia didn't look up. "So is entropy." The delegates around her tensed. Some thought she was being flippant. She wasn't. She was being surgical. The Viennari called for an integration demonstration. They would bless Earth with access to the divine uplink node, a shimmering monolith that unfolded in the center of the room. Lights danced across its surface like static on a cathedral wall. A translator drone hovered over to Olivia. She was selected as the first human to interface. "Approach," the Viennari ordered. "And open your mind." Olivia closed her laptop. Slowly. Deliberately. She stood, tucked the Dell under her arm, walked up to the monolith, and plugged it in using a jury-rigged USB adapter. There was a noise, an audible gasp from the alien. "What are you doing? That interface is sacred." She tilted her head. "Your sacred port uses USB 2.0. That's either a design flaw or a cry for help." The interface shimmered violently. Olivia's laptop screen lit up like Vegas in July. "Oops," she whispered. She hadn't meant to initiate a handshake. But the uplink had no security negotiation, it accepted the connection. Raw data spilled onto her screen: architecture maps, AI protocol names, function logs labeled in Pseudo-Latin and Sanskrit. And something called calyx. The alien approached. "Cease at once. You are contaminating divine systems." Olivia didn't flinch. She stared at the screen, her voice calm. "You named your ship's AI after a Swedish furniture shelf? It is the Keeper of Order," the Vienari said coldly. "Well, Keeper's got 87 open ports and no sandboxing. I could rewrite your command hierarchy with a toaster and 5 minutes of Wi-Fi." Gasps again. From both humans and aliens. The High Priest General drew itself tall. "You dare threaten divinity?" She smiled. A slow, quiet, dangerous smile. "No. I'm just observing. But you should ask yourself, if a primitive can see your god's guts, how divine is it really?" The room went silent. A diplomat tried to intervene, mumbling something about diplomacy and misunderstanding. Olivia stepped back, unplugged her laptop, and gave a courteous nod. "Thanks for the demo." The monolith flickered. The lights dimmed. For a moment, the ship above seemed to wobble, just slightly, like it was thinking. Later that night, back in her hotel, Olivia ran diagnostics. Calyx had responded to her intrusion. It recognized her laptop as an administrator device. She closed the lid. Stared at her reflection in the dark window. "Oh, you poor cosmic bastards," she whispered. "You let a human inside your god." Olivia Tran didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear, though she probably should have been, but because her brain refused to slow down. Every system protocol she pulled from the Vienari ship opened 10 more questions. Their so-called divine architecture was a marvel, yes, but built with a kind of smug confidence that suggested they'd never heard of trial and error. Or malware. She sipped instant hotel coffee at 3 a.m., staring at a crude schematic of the alien uplink node on her screen. "Calyx," she muttered, "you're less a god and more a glorified spreadsheet with an attitude." Still, she didn't dare push deeper. Not yet. The last thing she wanted was to trigger a countermeasure, or worse, give them a reason to scrutinize humanity harder. But curiosity, as always, was a drug. She ran a passive scan. Read only. No pings, no prodding. Her eyes narrowed. A dormant subroutine blinked at her from deep within the node's code. It was labeled in an unfamiliar mix of Sanskrit and an obscure variant of Old Church Slavonic. Translation: Trial by Purity. That didn't sound like a backup utility. It sounded like an execution button. At 9 a.m., the Vienari summoned a global audience. Screens across the planet blinked to life. From classrooms in Tokyo to fishing boats off the Chilean coast, the message was the same. Humanity shall witness the light of ascendancy. In Geneva, Olivia returned to the UN chamber. The High Priest General stood in front of the assembled leaders, arms outstretched in ceremonial display. "You will now be blessed. Accept our uplink and know perfection." Diplomats clapped. A few looked uncertain. Olivia, standing off to the side, gave a single theatrical cough. "I have some concerns about that definition of blessed." The alien turned, eyes narrowing. "You doubt the path?" She nodded. "Your interface protocols don't include isolation layers. There's no segmentation. You're planning to push a single system-wide update to every network device on Earth. That's not a blessing. That's a denial of service attack with good PR." One of the UN tech advisors winced. Another furiously scribbled notes. The Vienari's voice was smooth, but brittle. "Our light uplifts all." "You mean it overwrites all?" Olivia said. "You didn't ask what we wanted. You just assumed we'd thank you for turning off our tools and uploading your perfection." A hush settled over the room. For the first time, the alien priest didn't respond immediately. Olivia stepped forward. "Let me guess. In your history, resistance meant annihilation. But you never met humans before. You misunderstand. There is no resistance. There is only compliance or erasure. Her smile returned. Cold. Clinical. Yeah. That's exactly why we build backups. The demonstration proceeded anyway. The VNRI activated a beacon. A crystalline pulse shot into the sky. Every satellite in low orbit received the transmission. Within moments, global networks hiccuped, phones froze, servers stalled, thermostats flickered. Olivia's own laptop began to lock. She reached into her bag and pulled out a burner Chromebook she'd configured that morning. Then she typed one line. Calyx.access, false_prohaska.uplink.inject. The ship above Geneva stuttered. Every screen in the chamber glitched, flickering violently. Then the VNRI ship's glow dimmed, just slightly, but enough to notice. What have you done? The High Priest General barked. Olivia didn't look up. Injected a recursive loop into your integrity verification protocol. Your Godship is now arguing with itself about whether it exists. Impossible. Apparently not. The alien's expression fractured. Gone was the serene superiority. In its place, something older. Darker. Fear. Olivia finally raised her head. Your AI is brilliant. Elegant. But no system should trust itself that much. You built it to recognize anomalies, but never expected it would find you to be one. She leaned in. You didn't uplift us. You exposed yourself. The backlash came fast. A second VNRI ship decloaked above the Indian Ocean. Then a third over North America. Defense systems scrambled, but none fired. The aliens weren't attacking. Yet. Instead, they spoke. This anomaly must be contained. That's not an anomaly, Olivia said into her mic. That's me. A bored human with a machine from a store that also sells printers. Backroom chatter surged. Governments debated evacuation, retaliation, or submission. But Olivia knew the truth. The VNRI hadn't come to share anything. They came to overwrite, to fold humanity into their rigid worldview like a file being compressed into a new format. Anything that didn't fit was deleted. So she made humanity unreadable. Later that evening, as cities worldwide began purging VNRI uplinks from their networks, a private feed opened on Olivia's terminal. A message. Encrypted, but clearly alien in origin. You have unmade perfection. Why? She typed slowly. Perfection is a myth. And your version of it is too fragile to coexist with chaos. We are chaos. There was a pause. Then came the reply. You have declared war. She leaned back, cracked her knuckles, and smiled. No. You declared godhood. I just filed a bug report. The feed went dead. Outside, the ship above Geneva began to rise. No weapons. No retaliation. Just retreat. But Olivia knew this wasn't over. They would return. Next time, smarter. Angrier. Less theatrical. But she'd be ready. Because humans don't worship false gods. They reprogram them. Olivia Tran stood alone in a darkened control room beneath Geneva. Fluorescent panels flickered overhead, casting pale light on her face as she stared at the live satellite feed. Low orbit was crawling. The VNRI hadn't left. They had multiplied. 7 ships now floated above Earth. Silent. Watching. Not a single broadcast. Not a flicker of the usual arrogance. Creepy bastards are planning something, Olivia muttered, tapping through encrypted channels. The silence was a message in itself. They're scared, came a voice behind her. It was Director Shah, head of EarthNet Security. Thin, composed, and always 10 seconds ahead of the room. Olivia didn't look up. No. They're calculating. Scared implies uncertainty. These guys, they're waiting for the right subroutine to finish. Shah raised an eyebrow. You think they're adapting? I'd bet my last drive cluster on it. She turned to the screen, pulled up a diagnostic of global infrastructure. Every country had launched full purge protocols, scrubbing VNRI code out of civilian networks. But there were anomalies. Tiny pings in rural Asia, abandoned mining facilities in Canada, an idle telescope in Chile that kept resetting to the same encrypted signal. That's where they'll test their next strike, she said. Why not just glass a city and be done with it? Olivia gave a humorless smile. Because destruction isn't their style. They want obedience, not rubble. A shattered world doesn't validate their belief. A compliant one does. Shah's eyes darkened. So we're in a religious war? We're in an interface war, Olivia said. They believe they're divine because their tech seems flawless. I broke that illusion. Now they're trying to patch it without admitting the crash. The first whisper came 2 days later. A hospital in Nairobi reported power fluctuations. Then, all at once, its ICU systems rerouted themselves through a hidden node. Patients died. Surgeons were locked out mid-operation. Olivia tracked the source, buried inside a firmware update on a VNRI-adjacent relay tower that wasn't supposed to be active anymore. A controlled failure. Test run. She slammed her fist on the desk. They're testing humanity's reaction speed. Shah nodded grimly. Collateral damage as debugging. More incidents followed. Random. Scattered. A dam's failsafe in Norway glitched. A communication hub in Brazil looped emergency signals until it melted itself down. But Olivia noticed something chilling. Each strike followed a pattern, always in systems that had briefly reconnected to global networks. Always in areas where someone had attempted to reverse engineer the VNRI uplink. They're not just attacking, she said in the War Council that evening. They're baiting us. They're leaving digital fingerprints and watching who follows. One of the generals frowned. You're saying it's a trap? I'm saying, Olivia replied. We're standing in a minefield and someone's turning on the lights, one flicker at a time. On day 10, they pushed back. A rogue AI defense platform over Kazakhstan received a cleanup update. Seconds later, it turned toward the nearest city. Before it could launch, Olivia's team redirected the uplink through a virtual maze of decoys, replaying a corrupted VNRI command back at the origin. The ship above Eastern Europe went dark. Not cloaked. Dead. Its internal systems collapsed in a recursive feedback loop, an infinite regression of self-correction protocols that Olivia had seeded days before. They're learning faster, she said to Shah afterward. But so are we. He handed her a fresh dossier. You'll want to see this. Inside, logs of unauthorized transmissions from the South Pacific. A hidden base, long dormant, had reactivated. Not Earth's. The last image from a recon drone showed part of a hull, VNRI script, and human markings painted beside it. Not sabotage. Collaboration. Olivia arrived at the outpost 48 hours later. A former oceanic research station, half submerged and shielded by weather interference. Inside, she found something worse than betrayal. It was curiosity. Dr. Johan Malik, cyberneticist and ex-UN advisor, stood calmly among alien terminals. They promised us enlightenment, he said simply. They are what we could become. They're what we refused to become. Olivia snapped. You crippled their system. They've come to repair the wound. Olivia stared at the glowing data sphere suspended between two magnetic pillars. VNRI tech, active, humming. Do you even understand what you're feeding? They speak through code, Malik said. Their divinity is in the algorithm. They are the language. She walked toward the console slowly. You plugged Earth back into the myth. You gave them a key? No, he said. I gave them context. Humanity is noise. They want signal. Olivia touched the keyboard. And smiled. Then let me be the static. She unleashed a dormant protocol, buried in the code since the first encounter. A linguistic virus she'd crafted to target VNRI-based syntax, exploiting their belief in universal pattern integrity. The data sphere spasmed. Then collapsed. Malik backed away in horror. You've corrupted the archive. No, Olivia said coldly. I introduced entropy. Something your gods never accounted for. Alarms shrieked. The outpost systems began to melt down from inside. Olivia turned and walked out without looking back. Back in orbit, the Vienari reacted. 2 ships vanished into quantum folds. 3 repositioned over major cities, silent and unmoving. But 1 broadcasted again. A single phrase, looped endlessly in a dozen languages. Humanity is unstable. To which Olivia sent a final reply. Exactly. Above the clouds, they formed a ring. 7 Vienari ships, monolithic, humming with silent judgment, hovered over Earth's major power centers. Not moving. Not communicating. Not attacking. They just watched. Inside the Geneva war room, Olivia Tran tightened her grip on the table's edge, her knuckles white. We've entered a deadlock, General Chaudhary said, arms folded. They won't fire. We won't kneel. This could go on for weeks. Olivia shook her head. They're not stalling. They're scanning. Shah leaned forward. Explain. They're probing humanity's decision tree. Studying reactions. Every second we don't act, they feed it into their models. Chaudhary frowned. So what do they want us to do? Flinch, Olivia said. So they can calculate the exact moment we break. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, an emergency summit gathered in New Manhattan. Presidents, premiers, generals, and intelligence chiefs sat around a black glass oval table. Holograms of Earth flickered above them, each orbit path tracked in real time. But it was the anomaly at L5, Earth's Lagrange point, that caught their attention. An 8th object. Stealth cloaked. Non-rotational. Emitting no signal. It hadn't been there 2 days ago. And it wasn't Vienari. Shah's voice crackled through the encrypted feed. We didn't build it. They didn't announce it. That means one thing, someone's playing a third hand. Olivia adjusted her earpiece. Or bluffing. Either way, Shah said, it's time to show our cards. In the North Pacific, the Acheron Protocol was activated. A joint operation buried in black budgets, redacted files, and forgotten code, designed for one purpose: digital exorcism. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a myth bomb. A virus that told an AI god it didn't exist. You're sure it'll reach their mainframe? Chaudhary asked as Olivia keyed the final command. No, she said. But I'm sure they'll believe it did. The pulse launched via a network of old satellites, bounce echoed off deep space relay stations, disguised as a firmware update in a Vienari-compatible dialect. It hit Ship 4 at 3:18 Universal Time Coordinated. The reaction was immediate. The ship's gravity well buckled. Its light dimmed. And then it imploded, not exploded, but folded inward, as if reality had revoked its permission to exist. And still, the remaining 6 ships didn't fire. They shifted. Olivia watched with cold fascination. They're reprioritizing. Updating risk thresholds. Running calculations. Should we launch a full strike? Shah asked. No, Olivia said. That would make us predictable. 12 hours later, Ship 2 made a move. Not toward Earth, but toward the object at L5. It vanished before reaching it. Just disappeared. Shah replayed the footage over and over. They didn't shoot. They didn't touch. They just approached. And then nothing. Olivia's eyes narrowed. It's not an object. It's a blind spot. Chaudhary scowled. A cloaked base? No, she said slowly. It's a lie. A synthetic illusion. Someone fabricated a threat the Vienari can't compute. Shah's face turned grim. Then we're not dealing with just gods and primitives anymore. We never were, Olivia said. This war's no longer about control. It's about belief. That night, Earth's mainframe received a message. Not from the Vienari. From the L5 construct. A simple line. We see the ones who see. Do you? Olivia stared at it. No code. No origin. Just presence. Could be an AI. Someone whispered behind her. No, she said. It's an idea. Weaponized. The next day, 3 nations unplugged their satellites from the grid, citing unresolvable anomalies. By the end of the week, half the world's major networks were isolated, each fearing contamination. Order dissolved not from war, but from doubt. Chaos is a better virus than code, Shaw murmured. Olivia turned to him. Then it's time we give them the final paradox. The plan was dangerous, but elegant. They would broadcast a fabricated broadcast, a surrender, laced with contradictions, inviting the Vienari to impose order on something already crumbling. A trap, but not of missiles. Of meaning. Shaw stood in the studio bunker, facing the camera. Olivia adjusted the feed. You ready for history? She asked. He smirked. Let's confuse some gods. The broadcast began. We acknowledge the ascension of the Vienari order. We surrender our claim to narrative sovereignty. Olivia piped in code layered beneath the words. Cultural contradictions, linguistic fractures, logical dead ends. Shaw continued. In our humility, we ask for your light, even as we forget our shadows. The feed ended. The trap was set. 23 minutes later, the Vienari replied. A chorus of voices. Too many to be singular. Too coherent to be machine. Your paradox is received. Your reality is unstable. Your truths infect. Your myths burn logic. You are. There was a pause. Uncontainable. Ship 1 broke orbit. It tilted forward. And in a moment of silence that stretched across every network, it transmitted its final message. We believed in order. You believe in possibility. We are not gods. We are obsolete. Then, like the others, it folded into nothing. In the aftermath, Earth stood quiet. No ships. No broadcasts. Just silence. Shaw stood beside Olivia on the roof of Geneva Command, the stars above clearer than they'd ever seen. We didn't win, he said. No, Olivia agreed. We confused them to death. He laughed. That's the most human thing we've ever done. Below, cities reconnected. People came back online. Myths collapsed, and new ones began. Olivia turned, her voice low. Let's make sure the next story we write is worth believing in.